Here in the UK, a fresh wave of strike action that's expected to cause major disruption to key services in the run-up to Christmas has begun. Around 40,000 rail workers who are members of the RMT union are taking part in the first of two 48-hour stoppages as part of a long-running dispute about jobs, pay and conditions. Only about 20% of the country's normal rail service is expected to run. That means 4 out of every 5 trains will be cancelled. Many parts of Britain, including most of Scotland and Wales, will have no trains at all. And there are unlikely to be any trains running anywhere this evening. Network Rail has warned that trains that are running are likely to be very busy, and it's urging passengers to travel only if absolutely necessary. Our transport correspondent Katie Austin has the details.
At York's Christmas market, festive cheer is in good supply. But for people hoping to get here by train, more travel misery is in store. Local hotels worry strikes have put some visitors off.
They've had individual bookings cancelled, conferences, meetings cancelled. This happening just in the week before Christmas is obviously going to hurt because everybody's trying to bolster their bank balance in order to deal with the first quarter of next year.
On strike days this week, that's today, tomorrow, Friday and Saturday, only about 20% of Britain's usual train services will run, and trains will start later and finish much earlier than they normally do. There'll also be some knock-on disruption on Thursday and Sunday mornings. Rail workers in the RMT have already walked out on 8 days this year in a dispute the union says is over pay, protecting jobs and working conditions. Passengers now face 4 weeks of disruption. There are 2 48-hour train strikes this week. An overtime ban at 14 train companies from Sunday is expected to cause some cancellations, and a strike at Network Rail will see services finish even earlier than usual on Christmas Eve and start late on the 27th. And more national walkouts are planned in January. The rail industry says changes to working practices are needed to fund higher pay. RMT members have now voted to reject what Network Rail called its best and final offer. The union called it substandard. And RMT leaders have already turned down an offer from the train operating companies group and blamed the government for insisting on conditions it said weren't acceptable. The rail minister said the government had played its part in trying to resolve the dispute.
We want an end to these strikes. They will damage the railway, they will damage workers' security, and we're offering security. There will be no compulsory redundancies for the workforce. There will be a generous pay rise for them. The modernisation approach has been accepted by some unions. Our message to the RMT is come on board.
A new year is coming swiftly into view, but an end to disruption is not. Katie Austin, BBC News in York.
And let's join our news correspondent Theo Leggett, who is in Woking for us. And Theo, the boss of the RMT, Mick Lynch, was talking earlier about the art of negotiation. Those negotiations clearly very, very difficult, long running now. What's it going to take to break the logjam?
It's very hard to see what will break the logjam at the moment, Anita. As you know, we've had 8 days of strikes already. Now we've got this strike, another one later this week, 2 more in early January, and a Network Rail strike over the Christmas period, which will delay engineering works. Now, part of this is about pay, and there are offers on the table from the RMT and from the Rail Delivery Group, which represents the train operating companies, and from Network Rail. But the unions haven't accepted those offers, and there's a reason for that. They say it's not just about pay, it's about terms and conditions, working practices. So, for example, when it comes to the rail companies, they want to introduce driver-only trains, or at least that's what the union says, and the union says that's a deal breaker. And likewise with Network Rail, there are changes to working conditions being proposed that the unions say they simply can't accept. And at the moment, there doesn't seem to be any sort of movement. And the unions are also saying that that Network Rail and the Rail Delivery Group seem to be shackled a little bit by the government. They're not able to negotiate in the way that would normally happen. So there seems to be intransigence at the moment. There seems to be a logjam. And nobody seems willing to compromise. So it does look as though disruption to the railways is going to continue at the very least until the 9th of January and quite possibly beyond then as well.
It sounds at the moment, and certainly for the foreseeable future, Theo, as if this is coming down to a battle of wills. Who is prepared to stick with the course, whether it's the government or the unions?
Absolutely. The government and the train operating companies and Network Rail insist that modernisation of the railways is what they're after. They say it's necessary. The railways are losing money, particularly after the COVID pandemic. So changes to working practices are going to be required, particularly if more money is going to be provided for people who work on the railways. But what the unions are saying is that yes, they need more money. This is a time of high inflation. Cost of living is going up, and it's not just railway workers who are affected by that, obviously, and that's why we're seeing strikes across the economy. But they also say they're not willing to sacrifice certain things. There are deal breakers out there, some of which they insist include safety critical services. So at the moment, as you say, it's a standoff. Somebody has to back down. There's no sign of anybody backing down at the moment.
OK, Theo, thank you very much. Theo Leggett there.